Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. My remarkable friend Fiona Oliphant helps women find their way to safety. She's the attorney who directs the legal advocates programs at Connect, an organization that works tirelessly to prevent violence in the family and create peaceful communities. So welcome.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Tell us, I think you're remarkable because
Thank you.
I have to declare this, I don't know what you'd call it. First of all, I've known you now for almost 12 years,
Yes.
that we used to work together in the city council office. And secondly, that I chair the board of Connect. But other than
And we
that,
thank you
we
for
have
that.
no relationship. Now, tell us about Connect.
Connect is a nonprofit that works to fight and end domestic violence by partnering with community-based organizations that lack the capacity to identify domestic violence issues and provide appropriate referrals. So we partner with them to provide technical assistance, training, and legal advocacy when needed for their clients.
So we really don't run, except for the legal helpline, a direct service.
Right.
We find all these little local community organizations, and some of them are very small.
Some of them are one-person shops.
Yeah. Give us an example.
For example, there's a small organization in the Bronx, Satietu. There are larger organizations.
And what does that do?
It works with African communities in the Bronx and throughout the city, actually. There's another organization named Droit Femme in Brooklyn that works with the Haitian Creole community. There's another organization called Harlem Independent Living Center that works with the hard of hearing, deaf, blind, low vision, and physically challenged community throughout the city, but particularly in Harlem. And we partner with all of them, over 200 partners throughout the city.
200 organizations. And when Connect gets funded, some of that money that they get goes to some of these little organizations.
Yes, because Connect believes it's extremely important to provide services and build capacity within the smaller community-based organizations. So when we receive funding, we actually funnel some of that funding to our partners so that they are more equipped, better able to
And they're
provide
not
services.
necessarily domestic violence.
No, they aren't.
Groups.
The majority aren't.
They aren't.
Yeah.
But these are groups that reach people in their communities.
Yes, for example, food pantry workers. They see survivors on a regular basis, but may not be able to screen or identify the issues affiliated with
And
it.
don't know what to do.
Exactly.
So you train them.
We train them, we
Or
help
you help
them
them.
build networks within their community so that they can make appropriate referrals. We provide technical assistance when they want to expand their domestic violence programs if they don't already have them. And we provide legal advocacy again.
So, and also you have a program through faith-based organizations.
Yes, we do. Connect Faith gets together a large number of pastors, imams, people from all faiths to come together to talk about the issues of domestic violence and how it's impacted by their faith.
That's very interesting. And then do you tell them also how they can help and intervene?
Absolutely, absolutely. And how they can use their faith and use the lens of their faith to identify issues of domestic violence and to support their parishioners or...
They must learn they must learn a lot.
Absolutely.
I mean, here they're preaching religion and kindness to other people and all of these things, and still they have people and this happens, right?
Absolutely. And then what happens when you have parishioners who need assistance as a family? Do you turn away one member of the family in order to support the other, or do you support the family in its entirety? And how do you do that safely? And how do you do that, again, with the lens of faith?
And Connect also runs a training institute.
Yes, it does.
And do these people, do they come to the training institute, or is that different?
They come to the training institute. We have participants range from social workers, attorneys, family prevention providers, foster care providers. Therapists also attend. So we have a wide range.
And does the clergy ever come to the training?
Yes, they do.
They do. And any corporations? I think they do have some corporate things.
I do think
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So this is really a unique organization.
Absolutely. I think Connect is one in a million.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how it affects everybody's life, including the people who work there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't provide the service without being impacted by the people that you serve
Yeah.
and their stories. And we all are impacted by domestic violence in one way or another, whether we choose to, tell everyone about it or not. But we all are affected by it.
So interesting. Even though the city's crime statistics show an 11% decrease in crime, and what was it, down from 500 and something to 466 murders in the last year. The same decrease hasn't been reflected in the number of, for instance, domestic violence homicides.
That's correct. A recent report that came out in October of 2009 indicated that there was an increase in New York City of intimate partner homicides from, I believe, 42 in 2007 to 46 in 2008.
And how many of those people had been to court or had some kind of protection?
Well, that report did not indicate that, but in an older report issued by the New York Department of Health, it indicated that approximately 70% of women killed by their intimate partners never called the police or sought legal assistance. So it's really important that we then go to the women where they are in immigrant communities and let them know what their options are and resources are available in their communities.
Well, you talk about immigrant communities. Are most of the women, well, let's just talk about the legal programs. You run a helpline.
Yes.
Different from a hotline.
Yes. So our helpline runs from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And it's different from a hotline in that we don't have 24-hour availability. However, when anyone calls our helpline, they either speak to someone immediately or they have their call returned within 24 business hours.
And then what do you do for them?
We provide a wide range of services. We can provide information and referrals. So if someone wants to know, how do I get an order of protection in the Bronx? We tell them where to go and what the process is in either family court or Supreme Court and criminal court. Or we can provide advocacy. Let's say a client is engaged in an ACS case, a child welfare case, and she doesn't think that the ACS worker understands the dynamics of domestic violence in her home. We can then reach out to the ACS worker and provide a context for what the case is happening.
It's very important. Do you refer them also to lawyers?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a rather large network of nonprofit agencies in the city. Unfortunately, resources are limited, and so there's a large waiting list for all of those organizations. But if the client is teamed up with a court-assigned counsel, an 18B attorney, then we can assist that attorney.
Oh, that's very helpful.
By gathering police records, hospital records, anything to assist the client so that she can go to her attorney with more information.
That's really very helpful, right?
Absolutely.
They used to, before I think Connect started training a lot of people in the Agency for the Children's, what do you call it? The
preventive workers?
Yeah. They used to, if there was domestic violence, they frequently took the child out of the house.
Yes.
Do they do that as much now?
Well, after the Nicholson case, in which it was decided that the ACS, or the child welfare system, could not remove children from the home exclusively due to domestic violence, the numbers have decreased. But we still see a fair number of cases in which there's domestic violence in conjunction with another issue, and therefore the children are at risk of removal.
Right. It's really an incredible thing. Now, you run another program in East Harlem.
Yes, that's a coordinated action against violence. It's an early model intervention program, and we partner with NYPD, the District Attorney's Office of New York, Harlem Legal Services, now known as Manhattan Legal Services, and the Manhattan Borough President's Office to reach out to complaining witnesses who have filed domestic incident reports in East Harlem.
That means they've called the precinct, the local precinct. It's been responded to.
Yes.
And they actually have gone ahead and filed a complaint.
They have filed a complaint or at least requested a domestic incident report. So we reach out to them whether or not there was an arrest, whether or not it was a verbal incident or a felony, an assault, or simply harassment. And we tell them what their rights and options are, whether or not they want to proceed with the case.
You don't encourage them. You support them.
We support them and empower them with information so that they know what their options are and what the consequences are of their decisions.
That's a very basic thing, because as you said, the people who were murdered, most of them had not been to court for an order of protection or any of those other things. So that's a very hard thing, and that then relates back to the community. So how do you arrange to go into a community and tell people about this?
So for us, it's really important to partner with community-based organizations that are trusted within their communities. So for example, I've worked with a small faith-based Taiwanese organization in Queens called Garden of Hope. And while working with them, I partnered with their staff and volunteers, trained them on all of the legal issues surrounding domestic violence.
So that was the staff?
That was the staff. And then we partnered with them to conduct legal clinics in their community. And out of those legal clinics, we had cases referred to us for representation.
So how many people all told do you think you affected their lives?
Oh, well, we serve over 1,000 people a year.
Yeah. And you go out, how often do you go out to different organizations to?
Every month we have at least 1 or 2 legal clinics in varied communities, in the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan.
Now, are most of the cases now from immigrant populations?
The majority of our cases have immigrant survivors, yes.
It's interesting because it doesn't necessarily mean that non-immigrant groups don't have the domestic violence. I mean, are they so savvy that they know what to do, or are they just not not organized the same way?
Right, there are more barriers for immigrants to access services. So language or limited language ability, fear of the police, misunderstanding the legal systems, things like that. So for us, it's more important to reach out to them via these community-based organizations, and I think that's why we're generating more calls from immigrant survivors.
And how many of them have immigration problems?
The majority of them.
Yeah.
The majority.
Is it hard for them to tell you that?
At first it is. Clients usually talk about what they view to be the most pressing issues. So their ACS case, their family court case, whether or not they can obtain an order of protection.
The ACS case means that the social worker had come to the house.
Right.
Had either filed a report or the child had been put into
foster care. Yes. So that's how the case usually begins, and their focus is usually on those more pressing issues. But we do a comprehensive intake, so we try to identify all of their issues and provide comprehensive services. So if they're a survivor, we also tell them what their rights and options are to regulate or regularize their status without their batterer's assistance.
Is the most emotional cases the ones where the children have been removed and they're in foster care?
Those are extremely hard. Being the mother of 3 children, those are very, very hard to handle. And you know, we've been very successful in advocating on their behalf with ACS, with caseworkers, throughout different legal systems, family court, to get the children reunited with the mothers.
But how long does it take you?
A while.
It's a long time.
It's a long process.
Yeah. And is it family court that holds you up most?
Family court usually has the largest backlog of cases, and the cases are usually open longer.
And it's ACS against the parent. I don't mean against, but it's ACS that is the defendant or the plaintiff? Who's taking who goes to family court?
Well, it depends. So our clients could be the petitioners in family court, where they are asking for custody or a visitation schedule or an order of protection. It could be the batterer who has gone to court as a tactic to sort of manipulate mom and further harass her by using the court system. Or it could be ACS that has taken the stance that they have to do something to protect the welfare of the children.
You also, Connect also runs programs with men.
Yes, absolutely. Because we can't serve domestic violence survivors without addressing men, both men who are batterers and men who want to end domestic violence. So we have programs that work with young men in high schools. We have programs that get like-minded men together in Spanish or English to talk about what does masculinity mean? What does it mean to be supportive of your partner? And things like that.
Do you do that in other immigrant groups?
Absolutely.
So which one is there one that's more interesting? Are there cultures where you really are going over and trying to change many years of
Well, we're trying to engage men in the conversation. We have to include men as allies in this work. We can't just talk to women about domestic violence. And so we engage men in immigrant communities, Latino community, young men in high schools, just throughout the city.
There is a youth network or a youth program also with young women too.
Yes.
Young women
yes.
and men.
Girls empowerment as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's separate girls empowerment. Then some of the groups meet together.
At the end,
Yeah.
on occasion, yeah.
What's the reason men give for battering?
Oh, that's a hard one. She drove me to it. She pushed my buttons. You know, the batterers that we've heard from are pretty inventive. She can't cook well, she doesn't take care of the children, she won't listen to me, she's hard-headed.
Did they see it from their parents?
In most of the cases, for batterers and survivors, they witnessed some form of family violence as a child as well.
Before. So they grow up thinking. And also, they don't have a basic sense of equality, do they? It can't be, I don't think.
That's an interesting question because for batterers, in the workplace, they have a sense of equality.
Yeah.
It's at home where they feel that they have the most privilege that this usually, comes about. But I think at the end of the day, domestic violence is a choice. You choose to batter. It's not, as many people think, he lost his cool, he went crazy. It's a choice.
And how often do you find that partner violence also begets child abuse?
There are different reports out there, a lot of data that say where there is intimate partner violence, there is some form of child abuse, child neglect. Regardless of whether or not there is physical abuse to the child, there's always a negative impact on the children when they are in a violent environment.
Just
and
seeing
they
it.
See violence.
It's terrible, isn't it? Yeah. How did you start here?
Well, when I worked with you,
Yeah.
we met Alyssa Del Tufo and Mary Haviland, who were the former co-directors of Connect. And at the time, I was going into law school, and I wanted to continue the work, to work with women, to see how the law detrimentally impacts women and what I could do to change that. And so I started out as a legal intern, and then became a legal advocate, and then...
Now you run the whole thing, right? And you have, how many children do you have?
3.
3. So you've got at home your husband and 3 kids.
Yes.
And what do your children think?
My girls especially, since they are older.
How old are they?
12, 5, and the youngest is a 2-year-old boy. The 12-year-old in particular is really coming into her own in terms of grappling with issues of domestic violence, of equality, of women's and girls' empowerment, what it means to be a survivor of domestic violence, what are the elements of domestic violence. She recently wrote a domestic violence wheel that included psychological abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and listed some of the impacts and what it may look like. So I'm happy to say that at an earlier age, they're really internalizing my work.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So do you ever argue with your husband?
In the beginning, I would take the work home, and if my husband asked me for the remote control, don't control me, you can't control me. But, after realizing that it's what I see every day and how it impacts my view of men and equality and women, I realized let some of that stuff go.
Has it affected your view of men? How?
It has changed the way I view men who choose to turn a blind eye to domestic violence. So if you don't acknowledge domestic violence as a man, you are in some ways supporting it. If you don't voice your opposition to domestic violence, or you don't work to empower women, you're supporting violence.
Have you had any people who've returned from Iraq or Afghanistan?
Not necessarily Iraq or Afghanistan, but we have seen a larger number of survivors who were married to ex-military officials, yes.
Now that's a difficult problem, isn't it? Because you have to differentiate between violence.
Right. And so for their partners to come back from an experience that teaches them you have to be violent in order to be a man, in order to be successful, in order to defend your country, and then they come back home, how do they turn that off?
Yeah.
And it poses some more difficult issues for the survivor in terms of, well, if I go to the police, how does that impact his career? And she has to make a lot of tough decisions.
It's a very interesting thing with the returning vets now, because they come back with so many problems as it is, and it's something that we really have to pay attention to. Do you believe if we ever got everybody to recognize that it is nobody's right to attack somebody else, that we really would have no more wars?
Well, that's part of our mission, right? To end gender and violence. You know, it's interpersonal violence. I think that it's a long, arduous task. Each person has to acknowledge what their role is in violence. Interpersonal or intimate partner violence, we have to work harder in creating a more peaceful community and making decisions to stand up for peace.
So all these little organizations that you have partnerships with and that you work with, do you preach this concept to them?
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, there's a little saying that the organizations or the participants in our Connect Training Institute come out connectified, because you know, we really ask that everyone be transformed by the process, and it's transformative education, to change the lens through which most of our participants look at domestic violence, and we don't focus exclusively on the survivor. Why does she leave? We focus on, why do men batter and abuse? What are the different components of society that support that behavior? How does race or class or faith or substance abuse and alcohol all come together to support a violent community? So, yeah.
And as the economy gets worse, do you see an increase?
We have.
Yeah.
Yes.
That always happens, right?
You know, the statistics say that every time there is an economic downturn, there is an upturn in survivors and the experiences in violence, but I'm hesitant to say that it is exclusively due.
And it's very interesting that the crime statistics went down in the poor economic environment.
Yes, that is.
So it's a whole different function. Do you think that that domestic violence, should we change the name?
You know, my husband and I have had long conversations about that, and we have in the organization as well, because a lot of people want to distance themselves from domestic violence.
It's like being a feminist.
Exactly. You know, I'm not a domestic violence survivor. She is. It's those people. When it knows no class, no color, no religion.
Yeah.
It's across the board. So maybe.
But we don't know what to call it.
No, we don't.
Yeah, it's general violence.
It is.
And what about early childhood education? It's going to be interesting to see how your little boy grows up, and when do you think it comes from the home, or can it be taught in preschool?
I think it has to come from a variety of angles. I think it has to come from the home, from the teachers, from other children that they play with. You know, in our home, we have our little boy playing with dolls as much as he plays with trucks and balls. And to my astonishment, he keeps going for the balls and trucks instead of the dolls. But
That's
you know,
so interesting when you try to do that. Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. I really do think that it has to be nonviolence has to be supported by the entire community, not just the home.
And that's what Connect really is doing.
Yes, absolutely.
So if people need advice, they should call your helpline.
Absolutely, at 212-683-0605.
And it's a live thing from what time to Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
And then otherwise there's a machine and you can leave a number and message.
Absolutely, and someone will return the call within 24 hours.
And are you looking for other groups to work with?
Absolutely. We're always looking for future partners, people to attend our training and then to spread the word and what they've learned through our training institute.
What areas are you most concentrated in?
We're throughout the city.
Yeah.
But predominantly Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, because those have the larger number of immigrant clients, but we service the entire city.
And do you get people who, is it income segregated?
We have working class clients, we have upper income clients, but the majority are lower income.
Yeah. Well, Fiona, I can only say that you guys are doing God's work, and that if we could all learn that basic respect, right, and a sense of justice,
absolutely,
we could really cure the world's ills.
And I just wanted to tell you one more thing, Ronnie.
Yes.
It's really important from our point of view, that immigrant survivors know that there are options available to them. They don't have to know the details of what legal options are available, just to know that if they need information and assistance, especially to adjust their immigration status, that they reach out to legitimate organizations and legitimate attorneys.
And you could refer them to them.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it happens because the batterer has the green card.
Absolutely. Has the green card or has citizenship, and may use that to isolate or control their spouse.
So that's really cruelty. Are you working, there was a case just recently, wasn't there, about asylum for domestic violence, which meant that they couldn't send somebody back.
Yes.
So that's a good inroad.
It's opening an entire new world for survivors, yes.
That's very good. Are you lobbying for different things?
We do a little bit of lobbying, but because of limited resources, it's more focused on community empowerment and advocacy for survivors.
Well, it's a wonderful organization, and I suggest that if anybody wants to help or find out more, there's another phone number to call.
The general line is 212-683-0015, or our website, www.connectnyc.org.
Well, thank you very much, Fiona Oliphant.
Thank you for having me,
You're
Ronnie.
very welcome. If there are any people you'd like to hear and topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.